Hey guys, how's it going? To follow up on my last video on the pumpkin zero tolerance 0200 lock fail. Sorry, I went off camera there. I should be looking at the viewfinder and I wasn't. To follow up on that, sorry guys, like this is such a beautiful knife. I was so in love with this for so many years. Wanted this for so many years. Finally, I scored one from a good member, and it was all in perfect working order, perfect working condition, and I decided to slice up a pumpkin with this. And all I did was cut up the top of the pumpkin. Just the, when you cut out the top part. All I did was cut out the top part. All right, and when I stuck the knife in, and there was some resistance, so I moved the knife back and forth this way in the cut. So, you stick the knife in the cut and move it back and forth like this a couple of times as you're moving the knife along the cut, right? You don't just pull, or else what happens is, you can't control the cut. The knife could fly through the cut, hurt you, damage the thing you're cutting, all that stuff, right? So to properly control, you stick the knife in, and as you try to pull along, you also wiggle, right? You don't do side to side wiggle like laterally, but you do it vertically, up and down. So I did that all the way around the pumpkin, and then I'm like, you know what? I decided to do the lock test. Sorry, I just bumped the lock test with the lock on, with the lock engaged, and it had wiggle. And I'm like, that right away my heart sunk. I'm like, no, don't tell me. So then I decided to test the pivot just with my fingers, and the nut had come loose a bit, just a little bit. It wasn't loose, but it was down to finger tight. Let me back up here. But before I did the cut, with the pumpkin cut, I had this thing tuned up properly. I had it adjusted properly so there was no wiggle. Like I could pull the, push the lock to the side and then do the wiggle test, and there was zero play. And then with the lock engaged, there was zero up and down and zero side to side. And it was running very smooth. Like right now I have it down tight after all the damage that was concerned, that got after the damage that was done. I just had it done. I just tightened it down. I didn't worry about adjusting it anymore, so it's a little bit tighter than I would have it. But it's good to have it a little extra tight for this demonstration, because that would mean that there is no play in the pivot to necessitate a roll, and there was no play in the pivot when it actually did cause the damage cutting the pumpkin. So that's what I was trying to make clear. There was no play in the pivot prior to cutting the pumpkin. So I can understand it if there was some play in the pivot prior to carving the pumpkin, then you're going to have motion that will, cause stresses on the lock face in areas that it wasn't meant to, that it wasn't engineered for. Okay, so let's go back. The pivot was adjusted properly. Then I started cutting the pumpkin. Then I did the wiggle test. It had wiggle, and I blue Loctited this nut before I did the pumpkin. So the blue Loctite came loose. Everything came loose. I could do it by finger after. So then, and then I just decided to do this. Right? So let's just snap it hard. Just to prove that maybe it wasn't locked properly. Okay, let's snap it really hard. I don't care at this point. So there you go. It's broken. Well, at least, well, what happened was, and then when I took the knife apart, after I noticed the damage, I checked the face of the lock bar, and it has a roll over that edge. So it was rolled, and I took a ceramic rod and I tried to straighten out put the square back on the edge, and I did a little bit, and it helped. It helped with the lock rock. I got rid of the lock rock, but I didn't get rid of this, right? So we got problems here, boys and girls. Failing knife. Now, my 0804, I sent down to ZT because it had a pivot problem where, okay, I bought this secondhand, and the guy I bought it from sent it to me with a piece of bit stuck in the pivot. So somebody tried to crack loose the pivot, broke their bit off in the pivot. The pivot never did get cracked loose, and now there was a bit stuck in it. I couldn't get it out. I couldn't get the pivot undone, everything else. So I decided, instead of doing something that might damage the knife further, I sent it down to ZT. So I sent it down to ZT. They did the work for me. They fixed up the knife. They frigged up the edge, because the edge on this was perfect, but they decided to take off a 1/8 of an inch, a 1/16 of an inch of steel while they sharpened it. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that right there. Isn't that horrible? That's what zero tolerance did to me. The edge was nice. It was just a little, it was less than shaving sharp when I sent it to them, but the edge was nice. All they had to do was strop it and bring it back to shaving. But no, they decided to take a 1/16 of an inch off. Anyway, so I was very upset with that. So I was going to send it down for a reblade, just for that reason. But let's see if I can do this. Hold on. I'm going to stop video and grab gloves. All right, guys. Taped up the edge and putting gloves on. And I tested to see if the tape interferes with anything, and it doesn't touch anything. So it's not going to interfere with what I'm about to try to show here. I'm trying to grab it so that I don't touch the lock bar. Okay, my hands are not on the lock bar. Thumb is up here. Thumb, the meat of the thumb is down below. Okay. I can't flex it while showing the camera at the same time. Can you see that? See the walk? I'm flexing it to try to close it. See it walk over? Come on, focus when I need you. See, and I can't hit autofocus with the glove on. So see it over, then I'll relax it, and it's gone over, it's gone back in. Now if I had to push it with my thumb, it goes over with very little. See, look. Now I got it to stick. But if it wants to relax, see, look. Now I'll flex it, open. And right now, flexing it open, it's not touching here. Let's see if I can do it both. Flexing it open and holding it open. See? It's not even touching the lock bar right now. It's just going back and forth. So there's not even any contact while I'm holding it open. And I'm not holding it open. Look, I'm only holding it with one finger, right? I'm holding the blade here, but the pressure with only one finger, holding it open and flexing it for you with my thumb. See? It's not even making contact with the lock bar. And I adjusted the pivot, I took it apart, I adjusted the pivot where it was actually wasn't free swinging as like this. I adjusted the pivot so that it actually had a little bit of tension, again to make sure that the pivot didn't have any slop in it, and it doesn't have any slop in it now. It's tight. That's just me going up and down. But side to side, no slop. Okay, going up and down, there isn't any noticeable slop, but, and I don't think I captured it very well for the camera, but even if I don't hold the, you know what I mean, and I just move the knife back, and if I just flex it back and forth like this, you know what I mean, up and down like this, not laterally, but up and down, vertically, this lock bar walks back and forth. So, all right, enough yak for that part. So this is the 0804. Problems with this. I already sent it to ZT. I already said that. Yeah, that's right. And they didn't fix it properly for me. They only fixed the pivot, which I was thankful for, but everything else got shitted on. So now, obviously I got the 0452. And this has been a safe queen of sorts. I mean, I have been carrying it, but not really using it. Like, you know, cut an apple, and not even down like this, like a cutting board style, like cutting an apple this way. You know what I mean? So cutting it just in hand. So I haven't done any work with this knife, and it seems to be fine. Okay, I'm not blaming all ZTs suck. I'm not on a ZTs suck rant. I'm not. This is not a ZT sucks rant, or cold steel is better than ZT, or ZT is better than cold steel, or, you know, I have cold steels out here for just examples, and I also have a Benchmade out here just for an example. Give me 1 second. Just gonna pause it. All right, I'm back. I brought another Benchmade out. Benchmade 908, the knives ship free exclusive. I can't remember this, like the 908 dash blah 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 blah. Don't remember what it was, but yeah, this is the M4 blade, whatever. It has a little tiny. It's the access lock, and it's on bronze phosphor, and it's free falling with no side to side. But it has a little tiny, we're talking super tiny, up and down play. But that's the access lock. All access locks seem to have a little bit of rock. Hear that 810? But no side to side. And I have hard used this baby, but this was out of the box. So it's not like the hard use caused this. This has always been there. So it's not a damage. It's just the way it's made. And it's not free falling, just ever so slightly tighter than free. But I don't want free falling. I don't care for free falling. I want blade stability. I want lock stability. I want toughness, I want strength, I want reliability. That's what I want. I don't care if it's, oh, so smooth, look how smooth, look at the walk and talk. That's all nice. Like, here's my Sebenza 21. Nice blade. See, free falling. When you release the lock bar, it's free swinging. Okay? So, it's like, I do understand what locks are all about. I understand what geometries are all about. I understand what titanium versus steel lock inserts versus blah 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 are all about. So I'm educated somewhat there. Let's go with this 0801. Love this knife, But look at the lockup on this thing. Not enough to inspire confidence. Yeah, it'll allow me to push it in and it'll stay there. So at least there's that. Like if I wanted to open the knife and I needed some extra security, I can at least push it in. And the good thing about frame locks is that when you're holding the knife, you're holding the lock as well. Liner lock doesn't give you that. So if the lock is going to fail, you can't stop it by holding it, right? So, but you can with a frame lock. So that's the positive thing about frame locks. And this doesn't have any slip action or anything like that. Even though that's barely on there. That's like 10%, less than 5%. And again, I've tried to adjust it and I can't get it to go any deeper. But I figure with some wear, it'll just go deeper. So that's not a concern. But it's showing you inconsistencies. There are inconsistencies. And here's their zero tolerance, going back to the zero tolerance and the lockup here. I mean the 0452 lockup. It's about the same as the 0801, like 5%, barely on there. And that's okay when it comes to a titanium against steel frame lock. You can have a early lockup, but you want a bit of a later lockup when it's steel against steel, because there's a steel in there, steel lock bar insert in there, for those that don't know. And when it comes to the zero tolerance 0200, the lockup has always been 50% from the beginning to the end, and it still is 50%. So you figure at 50% that should be pretty good, but nope, slipped right off. It came right off of 50%. So that's a big mistake as far as whatever happened. Like, sorry, I had two thoughts there going at the same time. The steel is obviously not hard enough. So how can you roll that edge off if it was hardened? It's not hardened because I put the ceramic rod up against the burr that was formed. After it rolled over, I put the ceramic rod up against the burr. You could feel, because I've had so many years of scraping steel, sharpening steel, cutting, all that stuff with steel. I'm a steel guy. You could feel just putting the ceramic rod up against that burr, it's not hardened steel. It's soft. And I challenge anybody to take one of these liners and put a Rockwell hardness dimple in it and check. I guarantee you it's soft. So let's just bring out, I have a cold steel out here, Recon 1 with the triad lock. You know, it's a lock back that's been re-engineered with a stop pin here between the actual lock bar face and the blade. And you can see where the blade wraps itself around the pin. And it creates this super strong lockup. Now, I will show you this knife, and I made a video, and I could always refer you to that one, with Raja 2. I made a chopping video, because obviously this knife is marketed as a kukri, and it's a kukri, and kukris are chopping, cutting, thrusting. So I did a chopping, just a small chopping demonstration video with this, and the pivot and the lock and everything else came out 100%. No lock, rock, no clicky clicky, nothing. All right, this is a solid knife. Yeah, the parts in question are monstrous, but that's not the point. Actually, that is the point. The point is, if you're going to say your knife can do this, make sure all the parts involved are on the same bandwagon as your claims. Because you know what? You can have an amazing blade, But a shit lock, and what good is the knife? You can have amazing handles, amazing fit and finish, amazing deployment systems, amazing coatings and everything else. But if you got a piece of crap lock, the whole knife is garbage. It's a really expensive piece of garbage. What else? I showed you a Benchmade. I showed you my Benchmades. I showed you this. I showed you. Here's a small cold steel with a triad. I'll tell you right now, my fingers are safe with this knife. I could stick it in whatever, carving pumpkins and everything else. My fingers are safe in with this knife. But nothing beats the fixed blade. Look at that lock. Think that lock will break? Oh sure, you can break this knife. You can break any knife. But I'm talking about within specified use limits. Carving a pumpkin? Okay, their claim is built like a tank. Well, this tank obviously can't go up against a pumpkin. So I think we're going to have to start building our tanks out of pumpkin. Have a sharp day.